Hi, my name is Caleb Smith. This is my budget analysis for the University Guest House and Conference Center. Today we're going to be looking at the University Guest House and Conference Center and coming to understand why it's so unique at the University of Utah. The hotel was constructed in 1999 as part of the university development for the 2002 Winter Olympic Village. It became a vital lodging location for the university hospital, as well as primary children's medical center and campus visitors. However, in 2011, this conference center, which you see in this picture, was constructed and greatly changed the atmosphere at the guest house. It drove up group business greatly. Now it is over 70% of what drives the hotel sleeping rooms at the guest house. It contains 180 rooms in total, and then features 30,000 square feet of meeting space in conjunction with the conference center and the historic meeting spaces on property. The mission of the guest house is to serve as a resource for lodging and hospitality for the University of Utah. There are various markets, however, the Greater Salt Lake City market is its primary market. However, there's international and national markets that we meet, as well as primarily the university. The revenue generated at the University Guest House goes directly into the Division of Student Affairs, and it helps to fund services and auxiliary functions for students and staff on campus. The University Guest House is a 501c3 nonprofit within the University of Utah. So all employees are University of Utah employees. However, there is a zero net profit generated. So net revenues are sent to functions within the Division of Student Affairs, as well as to pay down the bonds from the state of Utah, which owns the property. So as a budget summary, we're going to take a look at what breaks down the University Guest House budget as it sits within the University of Utah's overall master budget. The University Guest House functions on a 12-month budget within July to June fiscal year, so we are in the 2018 fiscal year currently. The master budget includes an operating and financial budget, as well as capital improvements and expenditures budget. The operating budget and financial budget function within a 12-month timeline, and the revenue is broken into market segments of transient, group, and auxiliary business. Transient makes up about 25% of that, 5% with the auxiliary business, such as convenience store or audiovisual equipment rental. The other 70%, as I said before, comes through group business. It is really what drives much of the budget into the large room blocks in the sleeping rooms. So operating expenses really fluctuate during high and low seasons depending on when conferences come in, either in the summertime or in the fall. Months such as December coming up are really slow at the University Guest House, so it's a challenge to forecast operational demand. Cash flow is monitored through accrual accounting within the organization and is closely forecasted within the financial budget. Any monthly deviance or shortfalls are repaired from prior month's surplus. And then capital improvements are unique in that expenditures, they're in the expenditures budget in a long-range budget, which involves planning for hotel renovations, new construction, operating equipment repairs, and improvements. And then this budget is highly tied to the bond, which the University Guest House operates with the state of Utah, and is contingent on the revenue that University Guest House generates. So we're going to take a look at key expenditures. From this figure here, we see that salaries is a significant portion of those key expenditures. In order to conform with the 501c3 nonprofit status, we have $5,770,400 in total revenues, or 100% of our total revenues our expenditures. So those branch out and go to salaries, which make up 44.5% of all of our expenses incurred. And then the next largest are our debt payments to the university and to the bond. The remaining expenses make up utilities, advertising, amenities, and so forth. We can see here that key revenues are almost primarily driven from the sleeping rooms. All of the other revenue sources are only there to support. So key revenues from sleeping rooms make up 91.85% of our total revenue, which is the $5,770,400 that we saw on the previous page. So the remaining $470,400 in revenues generated through meeting space, inventory, audiovisual rental charges, and additional options such as the C-store, which is our convenience store, where guests can purchase small items, and that adds to our minor food and beverage charges. So what are the macro and micro influences on the guest house? On a macro or large level, we have economic influx within hospitality across the nation or across the world. If there's recessions going on, or right now we have an economic boom, and so there are a lot of conferences. There's a lot of funding going on for conferences. We have seasonal impacts. As I said, December's slow, but summer is busy. And then tourism changes within Salt Lake City and Utah. Salt Lake City drives a lot of large conferences and conventions, which create impact on the city and increase our occupancy. And then micro level, when we have sporting events, large football games, the University of Utah budget changes frequently, so that will influence what options we have in terms of our improvements. And then the student staff population changes. Many of our part-time staff are students, and so that fluctuates between summertime and holidays, and then increases a lot when they're in school. So those are some of the large and small influences that we see at the guest house. Areas of concern: we have high impact of costs from this new wing going in. That will be obviously a large change for a lot of the staff, for groups, and then that will directly impact the budget. Rising salary and wage costs, as well as quality assurance through maintenance funding, is always a factor. Areas where a university guest house excels: we are excellent in customer service, which drives high guest ratings and value. Then we have a steady revenue source from group and transient business, high occupancy rate at 83%, we go back and forth between the Grand America, which is a 5-star hotel in Salt Lake, for #1 hotels on TripAdvisor, due to these points that we excel at. So the recommendations that I would make in this analysis of this budget for the University Guest House and Conference Centers, we really need to define what capital improvements we can make and how we can gain funding for those. We need to direct sales and marketing to ensure fiscal year 2018 sleeping room revenue goals are achieved. Make direct audits to the labor hours and efficiency of line workers to decrease labor costs, to make sure that we're making the most effective choices there. And then increase sleeping room inventory to better serve meeting space requirements, so that will come through the new wing being built. And then work with auxiliary services to more clearly define percentage of debt payments paid from the university guest house revenue to better serve the needs of operating capital expenses at the guest house. I said that revenue drives what our debt payment is towards the state of Utah. So these are my suggestions, and this was my report and analysis.